of claims made by either, like I said, anonymous people, or somebody, for example, calling and saying, I used to have a roommate who told me this sensational story. So just, obviously that's not something that can be really investigated, right? What's your roommate's name? I don't remember, right? So that's what that's about. I don't appreciate it being directed towards Donald J. Trump, because that pushes a narrative that is completely false. There are all kinds of people that are mentioned in the quote Epstein files that we had to look at and run down.
Yeah, no, I understand. He is the only sitting president who we're talking about. I do want to move on. Former CNN anchor Don Lemon and another journalist, Georgia Fort, were arrested on Friday on charges they violated federal law during a tense protest at a Minnesota church. A conservative federal judge, somebody who clerked for Antonin Scalia, already had rejected those warrants and wrote that there is no evidence that those two engaged in any criminal behavior or conspired to do so. Then an appeals court held up that decision. Why did you then bring this case to a grand jury after it already had been rejected by multiple judges?
So first of all, that appeals court, that's, right. The appeals court, a judge on the appeals court said that there was clearly probable cause. There was absolutely probable cause that a crime had been committed, okay? So it's true that they rejected the mandamus petition, but yes, by Mr. Lemon and others, it's public. And so, yes, you're right, a judge in that court had said there wasn't probable cause, but guess what? Our system doesn't allow judges to make that decision. They can make that decision to get an arrest warrant on a complaint, but only a grand jury can bring forth an indictment. And so that's what we did. We went to a grand jury, which, as you know, are 25 citizens from Minneapolis and around that decide whether there's probable cause. And that's who returned an indictment.
Mr. Blanch, I want to go, actually I went through the entire indictment, all 29 alleged overt acts of conspiracy. And there's a lot to ask you about, but I'm just going to pick a few here, okay? Starting with overt act number 20, which says, quote, defendant Lemon told his live stream audience about congregants leaving the church and about a young man who Lemon could see was frightened, scared, and crying. And Lemon observed that the congregants' reactions were understandable because the experience was traumatic and uncomfortable, which he said was the purpose. Overt Act 21 says, quote, as the operation continued, defendant Lemon acknowledged the nature of it by expressing surprise that the police hadn't yet arrived at the church and admitted knowing that the whole point of the operation was to disrupt. Why wouldn't a jury at trial see this as a journalist observing what is happening, which is protected by the First Amendment?
Well, you conveniently left out multiple allegations in that indictment about what else Mr. Lemon did, including surreptitiously avoiding saying where they were going, being part of the planning, being part of the decisions to make sure the police didn't know this was happening and federal law enforcement didn't know this is happening. There are multiple allegations there, and guess what? He gets to have a lawyer and he gets to have a defense. And so if he wants to go forward with the defense that, oh shucks, I was just a journalist, he can do that. But obviously, as the indictment lays out, and which you didn't read on the air, there's a lot of things that Mr. Lemon did that you would never do as a journalist. You would never do that.
Okay.
Let's be honest.
This is not about me. This is about what happened, and this is about kind of the rules of the road. I mean, there are many. Let me finish my question. Let me finish my question, and then you have the floor. There are countless examples of when reporters are embedded with people with. DOD, where we are told not to tell anybody where we're going. There are numerous examples of when we get embargoed information that we can't report from your agency, for example, and that has happened with presidents in both parties, and we withhold reporting it until you say it's time to report it. That's not unusual, and it's not unlike what happened with Don Lemon and Georgia Fort.
Well, listen, you are totally correct that happens every day, and it's happened for decades. But if you watch what Mr. Lemon did, okay, and I do not want to have a trial right here, it's not fair to him. But I will say that if you watch the publicly available live streaming that he engaged in, the comments that he made, I mean, that's what it matters, right? It matters, like, how do we balance the FACE Act? How do we balance freedom of religion, the right of people to worship on a Sunday morning, okay, and the freedom of the press? And it's a balance that we have to engage in. I agree with you. But my point to you is that I promise you that neither you nor your colleagues can honestly, with a straight face, if you watch everything that he did in the day before with the planning and the day of with what happened when